Welcome to 221B Baker Street by way of the Southgate Bridge. I am Sherlock Holmes. Actually, I am your host, Zachary Hare. Watson is still on assignment, but with me, of course, is everyone's favorite regular irregular, Karen Vera.
Hello, Zach.
Hello. This one we're talking about the episode with an interesting name, Down with a Dead Delight.
Yes, it has an interesting origin, this saying.
Ooh, please tell the listeners.
Oh, it's a very common what do you call this? Motto or words to live by for a lot of people who are in the undertaking business. But it's actually a Latin word which is the title of the episode, Down Where the Death Dwells. Can you say that for me? How does it go? Anyway, it essentially means where the death delight in helping the living. So that's why a lot of undertakers and pathologists and criminal scientists take well to this saying. So it's actually a wonderful thought where how the dead can help the living.
Indeed. So we start off. Apparently, Watson's still having some trouble with the detective.
Yeah.
Oh god, she's just tweaked, isn't she? She's just crazy. The look in her eyes whenever she looks at Watson is just. We get Watson beat up. Apparently, and I'm not sure. Did we know the dummy had a name?
Well, it was mentioned by Sherlock in the scene, and apparently the dummy's name is Bob.
I mean, did we know that? But I don't know if we've. Bob.
I don't recall it.
I don't think Bob had a name before because I think I would have remembered that. But of course, being a total, complete, typical guy, my first thought was, damn, she looked good in that outfit fighting. Lucy Liu. They're like, okay, how can we get Lucy Liu? Oh, let's do this. All right.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people, my friends, say when they say, "Oh, Lucy Liu's in it. Does she know martial arts in it?" Say, no, I mean she's just because she's Asian.
People forget that the first thing we met her in was freaking Ally McBeal.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. I guess she just made a very good indelible presence in her previous role, so why not, right?
Well, she was stuff like Kill Bill. I mean,
yes, exactly. But she's still an actress, and I think that's why her Watson's so subdued most of the time, because she wants to get away from that.
Probably, I would not be surprised. So from there, we go to the ME's office, and apparently, we get our favorite Emmy Hawes, and we have this girl, Nicole. Now, anyone who's listened to my podcast without fear might recognize this actress, for this is the same woman who plays Marty in Daredevil on Netflix.
Oh, I did not know this.
So we get, of course, we instantly like has been first warning sign. Yes. And then she's singing, she's happy about life, which again, warning sign. And
yes. That's right.
And then Hawes obviously likes her, and then we get the ultimate. The second this happened, I knew she was dead. When he asked her out and she said yes, I'm like, oh, she's a woman who likes handsome, likable fat guy. She's dead. She said yes to the big fat guy. She's a dead woman.
Well, also because the setup was so nice and happy, and
yeah. I don't think anyone was surprised. We all saw something coming. But
I was still surprised with the.
Then it was a bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're waiting for it to happen, but when the minute it did, it's like, oh, I actually gasped in surprise.
I thought it was going to be like something like she was going to be but yeah, bomb. It didn't. I never noticed before. There's a Latin phrase.
That's the Latin phrase I was just saying.
The one above this. Oh. Nice. I didn't catch that the first time.
Yeah.
Could have been that I was looking at the blonde, but anyways. But, okay, so she brings in a body, and the second she stores it, kaboom.
Boom. And talk about the case blowing up in your face, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, she doesn't really have a face anymore, but...
Poor guy. Poor
man.
And yes, and so we cut from the, no credits this week, and we cut the aftermath of this explosion. And Haas is like, he wants to be a vital part in trying to get to the cause of this explosion. And he even tells Gregson, don't be easy on this person when you find him. And little do we know, the person who actually did it, it's a little bit more complicated. And
it wasn't really a villain, not really. It's like, and that's more realistic when you think about it. Not every crime is, like that.
Yes. Yeah, people have strange motivations for, doing the wrong thing for the right reason sometimes, and this episode is full of that. Yeah,
Yes, indeed.
yeah. So
So yeah, so I liked his I mean, he's usually always the comic relief, so it's nice to see him stretch his acting chops a bit in this scene.
yes, and what then we meet him first initially because he was Sherlock's beekeeping friend that they would let he would give him some bee knowledge in exchange for letting him look around
I
more.
believe so. I'd have to rewatch the episode where he first,
It's way back in season
because
one.
I remember I thought it was wait, or was he? I thought he was Chess, or is that
Oh,
another Emmy? Or am I confused? I might be confusing Emmy characters.
me too.
I got it. Oh, and just before the season started, I went back and watched like the whole show. I just can't remember offhand.
Yes,
So
I
yes,
might be misremembering as well. So
well, so it turns out, and it was Hans that gave him this information, that there
yes,
were actually some gang members in that cell, and
yeah.
I cannot, I knew I was gonna forget or mispronounce the name. I'm just gonna say cartel because I'm not gonna say it right.
Sombre rojo, but yeah, we could call it the cartel. The
No, if you
Honduran
can say it, go ahead. So I can't do that R thing.
rojo.
I can never been able to do that right.
Yes,
So they started, and I like how they handled it. They split the case. Like Watson and Gregson are gonna investigate the cartel,
yeah,
but just in case, Holmes and Bell are gonna investigate the man, since obviously any other evidence would have been destroyed. So they go to the scene of the crime and starts looking at through things.
yes,
And see, and this is something I felt important to mention because it's one of the reasons I prefer. It actually made me think of this. Why I prefer, and there's actually a second thing that happens in the episode that makes me think of this, is why I prefer this Sherlock to the BBC Sherlock.
which
Is
is
is that they make mention of like obviously Hawes like the girl he asked her out, so this is says she was important to him. Holmes and Sherlock would have been like, I don't understand, why is he showing emotion? It's like, okay, you're not Spock, this Holmes, he
well,
understands the emotion, he just doesn't like join in on it all the time.
yes, yes. Sherlock is not Spock. That's a brilliant framing of why the way the BBC Sherlock sort of has this. It at season 4 seasons in for them as well. It's a little, it needs a little bit more growth, and yeah, it's frustrating to
Yeah,
watch
that's why I
when you're
haven't
at.
watched anymore. That's why I stopped doing because we used to. That's why we're the Baker Street podcast. We used to cover both
Yes,
shows.
I did some of that before.
But so
Yes,
hey, if any
and,
listeners want to cover it for us, contact the show. But that's why I stopped listening, because this Holmes has like, if season one Holmes says something like he shouldn't let his emotions get in the way, that would have made sense. But obviously this Holmes is not going to say that.
no, it's not. And yes, it's a really a very very attractive way of doing a modern home stories. The way they've done it here, and not the Spockian way that we see in the BBC Sherlock. Well, while very dazzling and well produced, can get very frustrating in its characterization. So I'm with you there.
Yes. So, and there's another point that connects to that, but it's from a later scene. So Holmes notices something. It's actually police tape. Now, one thing, it's not really a line because it kind of is, but I just love Bell calling him on the phone. Because he could have yelled, but no, he waits for him to get across and he calls him on the
Yes,
phone.
yes, that was like a scene of comic brilliance. Between Bell's incredulity and
He
Sherlock.
delivered it so good. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Yes, and Bell has a lot of this looks of what the heck are you doing, Sherlock? In this, I mean, twice later on. But yes, this whole hold this jacket, and Bell looks like the jacket, and okay. And talking about season one, if that was season one, Bell is like, I'm not holding that jacket, but they're friends now. They call each other by their first name, and then Sherlock just dives into the water, and Johnny Lee Miller. I mean, what time of year did they shoot this episode? It was probably November.
Ooh, oh my God, I didn't think. Ooh.
So the actor took one for the team and waded into that water himself. And it pays off, like you said, in that.
Okay, no offense, but how much he's getting paid, I think he can put up with a little cold. But yeah, so it turns out there was another crime scene there, right across from where that Omar was found.
Yes.
And so it can't be a coincidence. So they start looking at it. Now, of course, back to the police station, the detectives coming up. Well, I love how Watson she's like, do you understand? I'm investigating some serious stuff here. And she acts. I love how she acts all defensive. It's like, yeah, because you didn't deserve that anger. But it turns out she actually wants Watson's help.
Yes. Wants help in finding a certain known criminal. But yes, and this confrontation it picks up right off where they previously met, and yeah, the tension is sharp, and she gets Cortez gets her digs in on Watson, and Watson is she's self-possessed enough to like, okay, just put the case there, I'll handle it later. And yeah, but this is just, yeah, I don't know. Do you like this actress? I mean, some people think she's a little
I like the actress, but I think most people are, because it happens a lot, her character is just I'm gonna say it, a bitch.
Yeah, she is. Yes. That's like when Joan says, "I have no enemies," but hey,
I know. Be clear. I'm pretty sure Moriarty might consider even you in the. Wait a minute. I just realized something. Okay, obviously she's dead, but Nina Gershon's character, the female cartel leader, I'm pretty sure that was an enemy of Watson.
Yes, and Moriarty took care of her, so don't mess with Watson too much, because Moriarty wants to deal with Watson herself.
Oh, I love that. Was so awesome. But sadly, I'll have to wait a couple months to get my Natalie Dormer fix when Thrones comes back.
Oh my God, yes. She should come back. Yeah.
Oh, I hope. Well, I don't think she's gonna come back. Well, I don't use. Well, we might as well talk about it now. I'm sure you've heard the rumors that Elementary's not. It's not a long shelf life for it.
No. I have heard two thoughts on this. One is that the CBS chairman, Les Moonves, loves the show. It's very profitable for them. It makes so much money with just little investment. But I've heard people also say that has to look, has to make his shows look good. So he's just paying lip service to, Elementary as a case study of how you can be successful without the huge ratings. And yes, if they're in a tough position, we'll see if it gets to a fifth season. I certainly hope so. I'm hoping that the chairman of CBS would make good on his why we're invested in the show. And yeah, I would be heartbroken if it went away.
Yeah,
though.
Totally. I think it's one of my favorite shows on TV. It's one of the few shows that I like that's consistent.
Yes.
It changes, but it doesn't completely turn things on its head.
I would say a little bit more about that angle when we come to our closing thoughts on this episode. Yes, it's the consistency is something that is a true strength of the show, and it pays off for us viewers in so many ways. So please live long and prosper. Talk about the show.
Really, going back to, just because I say Spock. So we get to see with the cartel lawyer, and I like how he has the usual lies where my clients are legitimate businessmen. And I looked up this actor. He's got his name's Robert Montano, and he's got an interesting pedigree because I think he's a singer and a dancer.
What? I didn't look that up. Really?
He was an ensemble in Chicago, The Producers.
Oh, well, this episode makes use of New York actors very well, which we'll see in a few scenes.
He's also a voice in the Max Payne 3 video game.
What? Well, nice work if you can get it, right?
So they're talking. This happened twice in this episode for me, but I got a little confused when the lawyer's like, "Hey, hypothetically," I had to watch it twice to understand what he was trying to tell them. But he's telling them apparently that because what they're saying is the cartel to cover up their tracks.
Yeah.
And it's because they bombed someone else.
Yeah.
The lawyer gets right back at them and says, "Listen, was the other bomb used different kind of stuff, untraceable? This stuff is very traceable. The cartel wouldn't be this stupid." He's like, hypothetically, if I did work for scumbags, and then he tells them this what really happened. Apparently, the cases for the cartel people that died, it was one rogue guy.
Yes.
Although, think of it, one guy killed 5 gangbangers. I mean, that's pretty good when you think about it. Even though he died, but still, it turns out it wasn't anyone important, so that's an open shut case for the cartel. would
Yes.
have had no reason to like that, because even the cartel, who is known for larger than life responses, would not blow up just for some nothing evidence.
Well, I think part of the reason why the scene was kind of confusing was because there's some comic beats happening on Watson's phone as this scene is unfolding, right? Is that the scene?
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
now the texting is another important BBC Sherlock point. Sherlock
Yes.
is texting her like crazy. Come now, come now, come now. But it's actually important.
Yes.
The BBC Sherlock did that, and they did for comedic effect. And he would do it for the most. I mean, there was that stupid part where Lestrade leaves an important case because Sherlock sends an emergency text, and it's because he needs help with his best man speech. I'm like, I almost wanted to hear someone go wah wah wah.
That is frustrating. So maybe the writers are aware of how BBC uses
Oh
the
my
text
God,
message.
wouldn't that be funny if they intentionally like, hey, we're better. Look at this.
Say we do it really, really more cleverly.
So from there, like Watson goes to meet Holmes, and it turns out he tells about the two bodies who were close to each other and how they're actually on. Now this is another scene when he explained what happened with the bomber and the bodies, and I posted this in the page. And apparently I wasn't the only one who was confused by it, which made me feel better. And apparently the two bodies is one of those things where it's separate jurisdictions.
Yeah. Are these real parks? Are you familiar with?
Those are real. Idlewild is a real park. Those are real counties. I don't know if there really is like a creek. I don't know if the layout is correct, but I'm pretty sure most of the locations they mentioned is true. I wonder if I'd like to know how much of this has like really happened. Like if there's a body. What if there was a body laying down the middle of the creek? Would they have to debate it?
I'm sure that probably has happened in real life because it's New York City. But I would that would be a curious thing. I wonder how they would resolve it. Maybe the foot's here, the head's there, the head's the more important part.
I think it was The Mentalist that on another show there was a similar problem, and they had to some like higher up had to say it's their case, you handle this, that kind of thing. But so it turns out that and this is what was confusing. Okay, apparently the cases are probably connected, and what happened was a woman was killed on one side, and there was DNA evidence. Although now that I think about it, wouldn't the DNA evidence have been collected and stored somewhere else?
Because they were backed up, right? They're backed up.
Oh, maybe it was just an initial. Okay, yeah, that would explain it.
So it would come to light, and the little hole in this episode, actually, if I may bring it up a little early, is that, how did the bomb go off at the right time to kill Nicole? Because was there a timer? Was there?
I was thinking that the only thing I could possibly think of is maybe temperature.
Yeah, so once it reached the inside of the refrigerator, it was super cold, and I don't know. But never mind, there's other bigger, more fun
But no,
things.
I was thinking that I was wondering the same thing, because I mean, they would think that was a big. I mean, that means like it was being driven, bouncing down the road.
Yeah.
I don't. They never really address that. So it turns out that the woman was killed, and then more than likely that someone killed intentionally to be found the other man, the man, and stuffed him through a grave. Now they were supposed to go. Now the person, there's no way they could have known about the jurisdiction, so it's actually by accident that their plan still worked.
Yes, a cruel trick of municipal geography.
Yes. Well, because there was apparently a pileup or something that overflowed the morgue, so they weren't supposed to, but they still were. So, and I'm surprised they didn't address that. Like he said that to the bomber later. Like you almost did. But whatever.
Maybe the bomber was like, oh my God, there's an accident at the morgue. He knows it's backed up. Let me send it to this other morgue. So maybe not. It's a little bit of a loose end.
And so they're looking into the woman, and they're trying to figure out what they have all these theories, and it turns out that she's a roller derby girl. And I like how they use Joan's background as a doctor.
Yes, I had that same thought. Welcome back, Joan's medical background. And I guess the theme of our discussion is the BBC Sherlock doesn't use Watson's medical background enough in that show. And here it becomes a nice advantage for Watson because, this is usually what happens with roller derby participants. So she becomes a very valuable part of the detecting
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah, so it
exposure.
turns out her bruises are from roller derby, which makes sense. So they obviously, since they look up her name, they're able to go to the. Now I'm looking up a trivia for the episode on the IMDb as we're podcasting, and it says the girls in the back are real roller derby girls who actually have won championships.
I have never seen a royal derby.
I've seen it on fiction. I've seen clips and over. The funny thing is, I didn't realize how old. I thought roller derby because I've only started hearing about it recently. And
Yeah.
yeah, apparently they got a cool name too. There's a Gotham Girls Roller Derby League. But no, I've apparently because I was watching an old a show set in like the 30s, and they were doing apparently roller derby's pretty old even for women, which I find interesting. Obviously, probably wasn't always as rough as it is today, but
I don't know. I don't know how roller derby even came to be, but yes, it's more associated with women even, right?
I think I don't think men do it.
No. But there's fun to be had in figuring out Watson's roller derby.
Oh,
That's
so,
really
and now, listeners, you can email us and figure out your names for Karen.
and Zach.
No, we don't need to do me.
Saved by the Bell. So
I'm thinking Karen the Killer, the Voracious Vera.
Oh, that's a good one. Maybe Voracious is good. Yeah, that's good. I like that one. But for Sherlock, maybe we'll go with Sherlock Holmes Wrecker.
Oh, Shocker. Sherlock Shocker. The Shocker.
Sherlock Shocker. But
Sherlocked.
Sherlock.
to borrow from the BBC.
Yes, which you brought up before that you liked, and I said I thought
I just liked. I mean, it was just. I just loved the idea that she got undone by that. That's something so like all her bluster, and she just because she wanted to be all smart, just because she was, but whatever. So they talked to one of the roller derby girls.
Yes.
And turns out she was new, but so there wasn't much info. But she also tried to sell the girl Oxy, so there's some information there. So they get her medical records, and it turns out that she was very small time, but she was still an Oxy dealer.
An Oxy dealer, yeah, in her apartment where Watson is figuring out her emails and communication on her laptop, and Sherlock's digging around in her bathroom.
At first I was like, wait a minute, but then I realized he knew at the time that she was probably a drug dealer, so he would know to look in like places like that.
Very good observation, Zach.
I love,
yes.
and I think even the reason she kept it in a garlic thing because that would probably throw off the scent if they brought a dog in.
Yes. Oh my God, really, Zach? That's really.
Hey, I'm Italian. I know garlic.
Yep. And the whole time this is happening is that Sherlock is annoying Joan with potential roller derby names.
The first couple when he was doing that, I didn't know what the heck he was talking about.
Joan of Arc or something, right?
So from there, they actually get an email, which I think finding out what we know later, the email makes no sense to me, but whatever. Apparently, she was warning someone about her boyfriend.
Supposed to meet and this. I didn't get much understanding of the letter, but it just is a setup to meeting Toby, basically.
And so we could like the father's so defensive. We find out why later. And it turns out Toby knew the victim, that he bought drugs off for her, and we find out later because of some guilt. Tries to pin it on her boyfriend. It's like, oh yeah, they were broken up. He was violent. If anyone killed her, he could have.
Yes. Toby's father is played by John Finn of Cold Case.
Well, that's actually one show I never really got, but I do know the actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's a very New York-y actor.
Oh, very much so. One of those guys that almost always plays cops and FBI agents and that sort of thing. So they go from there to, let's see. Oh, we get another scene with yes, and she's like Watson says, like, I've looked into it. You want me to find this guy, but you won't tell me why.
Yeah, and this all happens in a day because I know it's wearing the same really cool blouse, which it's a leopard print blouse in a new way. And anyway, yes, the evening ends with Watson going back to Cortez and trying to figure out why, she has been approached to find this Hector person, and
we get the answer very soon after. It turns out that Hector had the crap kicked out of him by a woman matching Joan's description, but luckily Holmes, with all his cameras and stuff, he provides an alibi for her.
Yeah. So this is interesting thought is why Cortez is setting up Joan. Is she wasting her time? Oh, you're smart. I thought I would waste your time, but it turns out there's even more that will surprise us about why Cortez is toying around with Watson. So I'm really excited to come to that point of the story later on.
So from then we get the boyfriend, Dylan Hess, and it's funny if you look on his IMDb, it's his main picture is like some space battle movie. It's actually a pretty cool looking picture.
He looks like that kind of boyfriend who's like,
oh yeah,
we're rough with each other, sure.
Well, it's funny because it makes me think of, because people act like this isn't true, but as much as, of course, a man should never hit a woman, we all know that one kind of woman that if we hear, anyone else we hear, her boyfriend here, we're like, let's kick his ass. But then there's every so often there's that one woman where we hear, her boyfriend hit her. Well, let's hear him out.
Yeah.
And it turns out she was violent.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see that. I mean, I agree with you with certain women. It's just men are at a disadvantage sometimes because of it. But he was, he didn't take any prisoners either. He's a tough guy, and he completely undresses in front of
That was kind of funny. He's like, what's funny? It's actually smart of him. He's like, he's not loitering up. He wants to get out of there, so he's like, check me out.
Yeah.
And we don't know if Watson and Bell saw the rest of him, but but either way, he's not the guy. Now, I mean, this is again, it was the email. Was the boyfriend actually jealous? Because it seemed like he didn't care.
Yeah, and that's why I don't know how much stock he put in this Toby person, taking up his girlfriend's time, but he seemed like we're together. How can I kill her? And that was like an afterthought in the discussion. Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems that's what I have. It's nitpicks, but I have a few problems with the story this week. Not big ones, but that's just how it was. Yeah. So I mean, it just seems like the email. I think it would have worked better if they did a different whatever. So if Holmes looking at the pictures notices that. Now this I have a big problem with, but it turns out that there was a cable jack that wasn't there a few days before.
Yeah.
And I know they said, and it turns out it stars a hidden camera, and it's actually Toby, big shocker. But okay, there are places in here you could maybe I'm thinking my own apartment, you could probably get away with sneaking in a cable jack, but I'm pretty sure I'd notice on my kitchen counter wall. Come on.
Yeah. Even though we do get the precious moment of Sherlock going, how many cable jacks do you have in your house? And
not in the kitchen.
Bell's face is hilarious in that scene. It's like, huh? What? Oh, yeah. But you're right. The more practical point is you would notice something unusual, additional, or that something that's a cable jack and a kitchen counter.
That's probably the one room I would notice. Like the kitchen and the bath, like in my own bedroom, in the living room, my den maybe, but the kitchen.
Well, Toby wasn't very smart, I guess.
Forget Toby. Apparently, the victim wasn't very smart.
Oh well.
So they go to investigate. Again, the father's. I like how the father's like, "I do not give you permission." It's like, that's why they invented warrants.
And we see Toby's mother, who is Kate Burton, who was this great New York actress, daughter of Richard Burton, and she's. I think she's in the mix because, again, we have multiple guest stars, famous guest stars. So the one famous guest star in the episode necessarily the culprit. And so they bring her in.
Well, we should mention she was in Big Trouble in Little China.
Wow, that's like calling back from 1984, right?
Oh, but it's classic.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, so Kate Burton plays the mom, and she's appalled and shocked. And you can tell, I mean, from her face that Toby's given her trouble for many years. But, and she's concerned. She still loves her son. So they got their, the actress could portray that complexity. So it's a good casting choice.
Yeah. So
They go and inspect the
Yep.
house.
I like that fake book thing. I kind of want one of them.
Well, they work in construction, so maybe Toby can make one for himself. So,
True.
yes.
So it turns out Toby had two different hybrids, and they actually find pretty much, something you'd see on Criminal Minds of the victim, just pictures and fantasies and that sort of thing.
Sherlock's being all Princess and the Pea because he sits on a bed.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. It totally is Princess and the Pea.
So yes, we see this very disturbing collection of photographs and disturbing writing about Janet, and all hidden very carefully by Toby. So this is a bad move, bad development for Toby and his family.
So from there we get back to Cortez, and pretty much we find out that Cortez, indeed, she wasn't trying to set up Watson at all, and she beat up the guy, but it turns out she actually thinks, looking more into Watson, she actually wants her to join her in being like a vigilante.
Oh my God, is Cortez Batman?
Maybe she is. But it turns out the man was a drug dealer that beat up a girl just because tough, because the girl schooled him on the basketball court.
Yeah.
And gave her brain damage, and so that's why she went up to
why he, Cortez wanted to, hand out her own punishment for Hector. So
I just wonder if she really is trying to recruit Watson, what she, and she says a little bit like how she thought you would understand because you break the rules, and like they bring up the disciplinary hearing. And
this is the big spine of the episode, which I'm going to discuss later. But yeah, that's what I was thinking of
in the episode with the con artist, how Sherlock lets off a flashbang in the people's house, and she doesn't even bat an eye to that.
That's exactly. So, we've seen Sherlock take matters into his own hands with Moran, with Oscar, the one he beat up nearly to death. So, Sherlock is not completely free of this kind of impulses that Cortez is sensing and feeling. So she thought she's making the assumption that Watson would be on this agenda similar to hers, and Watson says, this is not. I think Watson's taken aback because she hadn't thought about it enough that, this kind of work can lead you to some tough positions, some tough decisions. Well, and so that's a nice, very layered turn.
Well, another good mention, we should talk about that episode, was the serial killer played by James Wanda's son, where Sherlock almost planted evidence to trap him.
Yep.
Sherlock is like, it's true, like a lot of, I don't know if I wouldn't cross the line if I was a cop. Because, you see horrible people getting away with, like, because of technicalities, you don't know what you do.
Yeah, and, 4 years into the job, Watson may feel she's not prey to that kind of thought. But if you're seeing enough crime and seeing enough injustice happening in front of you, you might be thinking about it twice. So it's a quite intriguing turn, and I really want to discuss this a little bit later when we get to the end.
So they're talking to Toby, and they confront about. He seems almost confused about the accusations, and they're like, and he said it was my therapist who told me to write out my fantasies. By the way, he should fire that therapist.
Yes. And well, that's why it puts him in a bad light, but he tries to sort of explain his situation and where he's been and how he can vouch for his.
Yes, he apparently has a pretty airtight alibi.
Yeah.
He was on the train, which obviously has cameras because he finds it soothing, and he was on a job with tons of witnesses.
Yeah, bathing a parking lot.
I want to know what Sherlock was using to bring the. I'm guessing. I think. Well, I don't know. What kind of thing you could. And that little sprayer was kind of cool.
Sorry, what was that?
When he's spraying to get the fingerprints.
Oh yes. I don't know. He has some magical British powder. Or maybe it's just because hands get oily, and if you just put a very dry powdery substance.
Oh yeah, well, and it turns out the other fingerprint belonged. Although it was funny, it was kind of a throwaway line that he was like, "Oh yeah, he was in the Air Force, so his fingerprints would be on file." Oh, so anyways.
So anyways, here you are,
Yeah,
dad-in-law.
I like how Gregson says that kind of thing usually isn't contagious.
Yes. Yeah. But because they have no evidence and there's no physical evidence,
Yeah, and any
and
evidence
Sherlock
they do have
that.
that they were going to use the son could also tie the father to the crime too.
Yeah, that's right.
They had access to the. Although you'd
Yeah.
think they investigated if some of the. They didn't really talk about the missing explosive that much.
Yeah, because it has to be accounted for, and
Right.
well, I guess the assumption is because they're signing for it, at various jobs, it wouldn't look
Right.
out of
Yeah.
place. So, but yes, so we've come to mom and dad, and their questioning leads to um the dad making some startling
Yeah.
confessions. And poor Kate Burton's face. I mean, she only had 2 scenes in this whole episode, but she made them count, and you can see, the depth of her hurt that the situation put her in, and she portrayed it very well.
Yes. And so they realize the only way is to lie and tell him that
Yeah.
that he needs to because he would do anything to protect his son. Although
Yep.
really, he's again, yeah, the therapy wasn't working, but still, this is big. Like he'd rather play the denial card than really face the demon that his son got within him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess that's the entire theme of this episode is people taking action on behalf of others with the best of intentions, and even if it's
Perhaps.
the wrong thing to do, right? Because doing it on behalf of Nyoka to beat up Hector. The dad did it for Toby. Because she just wanted to protect Toby, but even though it's a horrible thing he had to
And
do,
let's talk about
he
the
had
fact that the victim was kind of stupid. Because well, it's not really clear exactly what the father said, but I'm hoping he said, "Hey, by the way, my son, we also found out that he was faking being a drug addict, just about." Although they don't really explain how they met.
I guess it's the stories in a hurry to get to that ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered portions of the
But like, you
story.
think if someone said to you, "By the way, this person who's you're selling drugs to has an unhealthy obsession and is probably going to kill you," if you brush that off, you're stupid.
Well, they tried. Remember, they had therapy for him. He was doing these
No, I'm
journals.
saying the victim. Like the
Oh,
father said to her, we don't know what exactly she said, but I would think if he said to her, "My son
yeah.
is going to kill you," you might listen a little bit.
I don't remember. The father said he tried to give her money, and that's when she attacked him. He was violent about it.
Yeah, the
And,
victim, she
and
was
then
too
like,
hard headed.
Janet was a piece of work who was very stupid, did not heed to any caution that this Toby guy was probably going to be harmful. And the dad straight up said, please stay away from my son because, he's getting quite dangerous. Here's some money. And that didn't phase her either. She wanted to make her little, oxy business going. So yes, and you're right. She is quite, a stupid, and who would fight with her boyfriend. And yeah, she was a stupid victim, but in the end, she's dead, right? And that's still a tragedy.
Yes.
And because and she's dead because, like I said, the father had this, sort of right intentions for a wrong method of going about.
Yes, and I think it's important, like you mentioned that, although the thing is, like, he said he killed her in self-defense, I'm like, a self-defense strangle?
Uh, I don't know. Janet's a roller derby girl. Maybe it was that tough, but remember, Sherlock says, but what happened to
Right.
Nicole and Omar was that self defense? No, he deliberately went out and with intention did kill a homeless person and removed his guts, planted a bomb, and it killed the victim beside it. So yeah,
Well, I'm not saying it was easy, but how he's able to do that could be a hint. Like, maybe, it is genetic. So,
yeah,
so of course, again, confess the crime, and from
yeah,
there, we get
yes.
Cortez again, and there's this weird interchange. How she's got this self-righteousness to her.
Oh, I'm intrigued. I mean, I want to see more. of where this is going, but she's just such a tough cookie. She has a massive chip on her shoulder on the consultants and yeah, I don't know. I can't make out where they're gonna take this story,
I'm
but
very curious to where they are. I cannot wait to see what they're at. I mean, I wonder if it'll even tie into more of
yeah.
them.
So, but yeah, it's intriguing. So I'm sure we'll see more of her down the line, and it's a nice juicy story for Watson that is her own story. So we don't know if Watson will finally have her own enemies down the line. And you were right, she already had an enemy, and maybe she already has enemies around, and this is a good setup for Watson's a plot to call for Watson for herself. So, well, good continuation from the show.
Yes, indeed. So I do have one favorite line from this week's episode. You have both or all three, depending on your math.
Well, they used Johnny Lee Miller's comic gifs for this episode because that was hilarious. I even liked the water was frigid. I can attest to that. That it sure can.
Yes, that was a good one too. I fell on the phone. That was just so freaking funny.
And even the little wink, you're completely alibied. And Sherlock actually winked at Watson. I mean, that was so funny. So it was a really full on comic episode for Sherlock, and Watson got the serious plot. And just to carry on, also from just a final thought for myself on this episode is, so would you do something, take action on somebody else's behalf because you love them or wanted to protect them or wanted to have, obtain justice for them? Is that justified? Sherlock and Watson, in a sense, are doing that by volunteering to be police consultants. They are taking action on people's behalf all the time, and for 4 seasons worth of it. But we see that as heroic and something noble, and they do it the right intentions. But the other people have right intentions too, and I don't know if they are justified in their own thinking that they're doing something correctly. So it's a very deep, complex, layered idea on top of a messy episode that was kind of messy, but it had such value for me in terms of the larger theme. So I think that's it. Like, it's a pretty deep thought for procedural, pretty good going for procedural. Yes. So that's where my final thoughts were. Yes. So anyway, Zach, what did you think of the episode?
Well, I think you summed it up good. I mean, they touched upon some interesting points, a lot of times in the show, as I've said a few times, either it's focused on story or the case. I mean, the clues, it wasn't that complicated a case.
No.
But it was but I would definitely say, I mean, I don't think it's high rewatch value, but I think I think it was definitely about humanity, and we are definitely dropped some hints about stuff that might be coming. Like, I'm sure something's going to be happening with that detective. I'm not sure what. And just like with the Strangler episode, this episode has to do with fathers and sons.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Oh my God, that might be the overall season 4. It is the overall season 4 major theme, and I didn't even see that coming. You're absolutely right.
It seems like both cases also are about genetics, like what can be like, because the father, even though his son was obviously the father's got a touch of it too, because of how he handled the situation. I mean, he'd rather live in denial than, because there was so many other solutions. You could like tell the therapist, I'm afraid he's actually gonna do something, get the son even more serious care, tell the police, but no, his solution is, and then even after he killed the woman, I mean, what kind of a mind goes for? It's one thing we could forgive him for accidentally killing him. Well, not forgive, but you know what I mean. But the bomb.
Yes, that was extreme action. Yes, it's. I think that's the extremes of the episode. There's this very intriguing idea of fathers and sons. What can be passed on? How do you want to, protect others and protect your own son or protect somebody else in the name of doing something right? At the same time, the story, as you said, is not, it has a lot of messy and loose ends, but that's what kind of episode it was. It has this it swung both ways, I guess.
Yes, exactly. I think that sums it up quite well, and it makes me sad. I cannot wait to see what the resolution of this Moreland, where they're gonna go with
Yeah,
it.
so this is episode 11. I mean, normally this is when it all gears up for the whole larger picture end run of the season. So yes, there's lots to look forward to.
So I think that sums everything up pretty good. Apologies to any listeners because you might be getting the podcast a little late this week. My internet decided to be funny and not work.
Like I said, everyone might be playing with this podcast. Everyone. So sorry, everyone. Please.
Oh, great! We got their name wrong. Now they're really good.
Sorry, no shout outs. Bye.
Although, wait, let's have you do the Frozen songs. I'll do the video game with the hidden message because I'll be good.
Okay. Yes. I mean, the humiliation is forthcoming, and we will take it in stride.
Okay, so I think that everything.
Yep. So we'll catch you with the next week's episode, and then I think, there's like hints about the mother being mentioned in the next episode. So.
I wonder if they'll do they've never really flash. Well, they kind of done flashbacks in a way, but nothing like too full. They've never shown him. I mean, I wonder if we're gonna get her and get someone to play here because
it's gonna be a slow reveal. Like first they'll just talk about it, and then finally we have this bam, some guest casting for who play the mother, and that's something I'm sure will be done very, very well, and lots to discuss when it ever happens. So that's a great discussion for this episode. So thanks a lot again, Zach.
Great having you. So I think that's all for this week. So it's time for me and Karen to depart. So the game is afoot.